heady days of my life. That was
salad days of strip clubs and motocross.
Let me do my two-step.
Okay, let's go for it. Saw on the news this morning that alcohol sales are up 33% or something like that.
I can testify to that. Now, our last chat with Andrew Cotton, it was still an hour long, but it was a good one, wasn't it?
It was.
And we can't seem to stop ourselves from getting engrossed in the conversation. And I have a fear that our next guest is going to be much more of the same, because we've got a guy who's been there and done that.
Loads.
In every single capacity that one could in the world of motocross. Tell us a little bit about this guy before we do the big name intro, Jeff.
Okay, so you don't want his name first.
Let's try to do his name. Let's keep the suspense and be exciting.
Oh, okay. Well, this guy is well-travelled. He's from the Southern Hemisphere. Any guesses yet? And then he moved up to Europe to race in the World Championship, had success there before then moving to America, where he then won a couple of AMA titles.
You know what? When I'm saying keeping the suspense, his name's in the title, so I don't know why we're not bothering. You thought that as you were saying it, yeah.
I was like, this ain't going to work.
This isn't going to work at all. Oh, you can tell how well we think about these shows. Gosh, I mean, I've got some notes for a change, and so have you. So the planning is getting a little bit better. And
let's get him in.
We have got world-renowned, high-profile gangster in the world of action sports kept waiting in our waiting room. Before we get on to the actual interview, let's start the show properly. Hey, my name's Matt Crowhurst, as in the Crow with the Crowfro, and this is
Jeffro Perrett,
the Crowfro, and this is show number
4. Is it?
4.
5?
I keep getting the episodes mixed up because it's actually 5 shows, but the first week we did 2. Because we got a bit excited on how much we thought we could fit into one show. So it is show number 4, 5, whatever.
Call it 4.
If you like what you're about to watch, I tell you what, just hit the thumbs up before you watch it. It's a given. It's a given. Hit subscribe before you watch it. It's a given. And then hopefully you'll forget to unsubscribe and you'll keep getting bombarded by notifications from us. And we are coming at you back in the world of motocross, which is kind of how all of this Crowfro thing started, because Jeff and I worked together on the incredible Arena Cross series, indoor racing of the most gnarly kind, as well as freestyle motocross, and then lights, lasers, pyro. There's the tagline.
It's frightfully exciting.
It is awesome. And so we've been doing that for the past 5 years, and we've been talking a lot of smack about doing something else outside of motocross. And finally, when the world's on shutdown, we think, well, maybe we should do it now.
Now's the time. I'm ready. Another sip of coffee. Get this guy in. Okay. I've just messaged him to say, be on standby.
Yeah, it's happening. It's happening. Right, let's just get him on the invite list. He's right up there. This is exciting because I've not met this chap before. Ben Townley, in you come. 3, 2, 1.
Where is he?
Okay.
Well, we are satellite. Satellite.
This is going up, out into space, back down.
There he is.
There we go.
Is that him?
Yes. Has he got audio turned on? This is always the delay. Yes. Okay, good. Yay.
He's all thumbs up. He knows his stuff. Look, he's got his work schedule on the...
Look at that. You've actually got stuff on a whiteboard that you're actually doing.
I don't know you'd have memorabilia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You know, BT...
This is not our first rodeo. That's fine.
No, this is not. BT...
All right, I'll go out on most.
Got to go and show off. You can move around.
Let's all walk around. Hey, Ben, it's very nice to meet you for the first time.
How are you, mate?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us. Obviously, you know this geezer to my right. already.
BT, it's what is it? It's 8 o'clock. It's 8 o'clock over there.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Are you boys going to have a bottle? Because I got a bottle.
New Zealand wine.
Oh
He's
my
on a
gosh,
bottle,
not
I
just a
knew
little
he
bottle,
would.
all in. Right, where are we going? Tell us where you're
feel
taking us,
like I
Ben.
should be. Oh,
Yes,
look at this.
yes.
I'm just in the entrance way. So is it going to work?
Oh, that's going to work. Look at all those lids. And did I see a bike there?
Oh, this bike on that side.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. Championship winning bikes.
It's almost as good as my lineup.
Yeah.
Of props. They're not props. I've used those.
You've actually worn that crash. I'm loving this. I like.
Yes, this is the best backdrop we've had so far.
This is brilliant.
Without a doubt.
He's winning straight away.
I'm working it.
I'm loving.
The light's not that great.
No, I'm loving the one
It's
over
good.
your right shoulder. Was that your first?
Yeah, we could probably go through each of them.
Could we? Yes. Yes.
That's a ripper, ain't it?
Look at that.
What year are we talking with that bad boy?
That is brilliant. No.
90, I think. 91.
Got some good ones there that I recognise, though.
Grab it.
Do you reckon Andrew Short recognises this one?
Oh, yeah. Look at it.
Come on, fill the rest of us in, boys. What do we got here?
Well, look at it.
It's Colorado Motocross of Nations 2010.
I didn't go to that one, but that was another stellar one, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was cool.
Going on there. Ben will back me up on this because I went on his website again the other day and it just drives me mental because it is. We'll talk about that at the end. Obviously your tours and stuff you got over there, but I haven't been to New Zealand just once. What a place, eh?
Well, if we're going to go see Dan Reardon, then we should pop over to see Ben as well. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can teach Matt how to ride because Matt's not the.
Be nice.
He needs some top tips, and he's not going to listen to me because our relationship's already even got so I guess it'd be listening to a parent.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Listen to me.
Well, the riding, believe it or not, it's not really the focus when you come on a tour.
It doesn't look like it. They look like you've settled into.
Well, that other stuff, I maybe need less training, but always need practice. Where should we start?
I always like to
start
because I never did ask Ben really how it all started for him. So how did how did it get going, and who were you? I guess.
I wasn't from a racing. My parents weren't, or my father wasn't a rider or anything like that. He actually had a best mate that was involved in New Zealand's motorcycle magazine. That was his best mate, and he suggested that they get me a dirt bike, and that's how it started for me. And I just loved it. To be honest, it's like one of those drugs. You just start, and then that's it. It's in the system, and can't get enough.
How old was that, Ben, when you got on a bike for the first time?
6 years old, yeah, and just started from there. And I remember quite vividly we used to just ride on the side of the state highway. Probably like the M1 for you guys, but state highway. He's on.
Good UK motorway knowledge right there.
He spent enough time in the UK. He knows the deal.
Hey Ben, could you just describe where you are, Ben? Exactly within New Zealand. Just describe where you are and where this happened when you first got on a bike, where you used to ride.
So Taupo, that's where I'm from. It's sort of it's known as the trout fishing capital of the world. Really, it's just massive, pristine glacier. Well, not a glacier lake, but like the water comes from the mountains, some snow-capped mountains, and then so that's where I grew up. Started riding and that's initially where I started, just on the side of the road, and then Dad took me to the local track, and then that local track became almost like a second home. I spent as much time there as I did at home at one point, just riding, and
nice.
It was pretty cool because it was just a massive piece of council land, and there was a dedicated motocross track, but the club just had track everywhere. It was a huge piece of land. It was massive, probably would have been 100 acres, and there was just track everywhere, and we could just ride and cut tracks and do whatever we wanted. So I'd sometimes spend the whole school holidays up there, Dad would drop me off with some mates, and we'd just spend the days there and just ride.
I like the subtle irony that you started riding on the side of a road or near a road, and it's kind of literally, you know, you are well travelled. So it started off that you kind of started your road on motocross, you know, literally out there. But I mean, as I said, it's an unbelievable place for natural terrain. Listen, this is my take on it. When I first went to New Zealand, I went there on holiday. But you'll appreciate this, Ben, because you are a motocross rider. But I was just driving around thinking, oh my God, the track you could have in that field. Oh my God, look at that over there.
You do that as a kid, as you know, like my kids are now, right? So we're driving along and they're probably doing that in their minds. You still do that. I still do that now.
Yeah, me too.
You know, and there's probably guys in their 50s that New Zealand has a incredible, what do you call that, topography? You know,
yeah, nice vocab there. Like it, yeah.
That's about all I got. And, you know, the topography for dirt bikes in New Zealand is just phenomenal, really.
Yeah.
Probably the hamstring or the Achilles heel to that is the grass. You know, it's like green gold for farmers, you know, so you can't actually just rip it up and just put a track anywhere where you see fit. It's not quite like that, you know, it's all, it's obviously there's a huge amount of resources in New Zealand and agriculture, and so you can't just go and do what you want wherever you want.
I'm just trying to think. I realised I've actually been to Taupo. So there is a wakeboard camp called Ballistics Wakeboard Camp.
Oh, yeah.
Which is up around there. Is that the area where they've got the hot springs in and around there? You can go to different lakes.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, what we call it thermal water, you know, so heated from the land, or from under the land, sorry. And it's hugely volcanic. So Lake Taupo is an ex or an old dormant volcano.
Regardless of places in the world to be brought up, it's got to be right up there, isn't it? That's for sure.
Yeah, it definitely is.
I can understand why you'd want to go back once you've done what you wanted to achieve. Talking of which, when you started riding, so when did you start realizing you were getting pretty good at it then?
Probably it's hard. That's hard to say in New Zealand. There's not a huge depth, but throughout this whole period now, these last 3 weeks, New Zealand's just been fully locked down. You know, like I've literally in the last 3 weeks been to town once, and I went to pick up a guy who's living in our apartment. He got a flat tire. That's the only reason I went to town. So
he had wine. He had crates of wine written on the shopping list.
Wine and coffee. So where I was going with that is there's been a lot of images floating around Facebook, you know, of the time that I grew up racing, and that was in the early 90s throughout the late 90s, racing in New Zealand. And I grew up in a really strong era, and I believe that was a huge part. Like looking at the images, you never really slow down in life to really take that all in, you know. In the last few weeks, a lot of guys or riders my age have, you know, we've been looking at images, and heaps of people are sharing stuff, and my era was super strong. It was the only time that you can really say that there were 4 or 5 kids that could have won on any given race day at times, you know, and then 3 of us really carried it right through. You know, into
you, Josh. No, it was Josh.
Cody Cooper.
Yeah.
Josh is a bit older than me.
Older, yeah.
Yeah. Myself, Cody Cooper, and then another rider, Luke Burkhardt, who also came to Europe at one point as well. So it was a real strong. We were sort of separated by a couple of years of age, you know, but it allowed. So I guess going back to your question, really started to know what was when I went to race in Aussie, because myself and Luke, we were New Zealand 1 and 2, and then we became Australian 1 and 2, you know. So then the writing was on the wall a little bit then, because, you know, New Zealand's, you got to sort of understand, a lot of people have no idea. You know, we're at that point in time, we were a country of less than 3 million people. You know, we're only just hitting like late 4s of 4 million people now, you know. So, you know, the depth of racing is really a lot smaller, and then so when you go to Aussie and you see that, bigger population and you're still competitive, and then I went to actually race in America and did an event over there when I was 13, and I sort of, looking back now, my parents did that because I was making so much noise about being a racer. They did that to probably see, is it justified to keep going at this level that we are?
That's a big step, isn't it? At that age, you hadn't been racing that long. You've been riding a while. For them to take you to America, what was the event in America that warranted you making that trip at that age?
It was an event called Ponca City. So that at that time, and that sort of time and era, there was two big amateur national championships. So you had Lorettalands and Ponca City, but Lorettalands has been that qualifying process for forever. We have to be there for months in advance to qualify, and we just didn't have the time and the budget to be able to achieve that. So we did that Ponca City event, which you qualify at the event, during the event, and then do some finals. And so we went and did that, and that's sort of how, I guess, when it really started for me, that wow, I'm competitive with American riders my age, So that's
can you remember? Sorry to jump in because I'm excited about that first sensation of a big race. Was it a big affair? Could you feel the pressure or the excitement? How did you react to the situation?
I really felt pressure ever. For me, it was I guess the occasion, of being at that type of event, and but on the same note, I also just felt like I put my pants on one leg at a time, just like the guy did. That was sort of best in America at the time, and just the gate's going to drop, and we're all going to have a crack at it. So I just
Were there some other notable names there?
There were.
At that event. What sort of other names were at that event with you?
I don't know if there'd be names that but Shane Bess, he was an upcoming amateur rider at the time, and Gene Stull, they were good riders. They were American Suzuki riders at the time, and they had a big program then. So they were two main guys that I sort of was there or thereabouts with, and it was obviously an eye-opener for my whole family, because when you go to a race event in New Zealand, 9.9 events out of 10 are one-day events, and then you go there and it's like a whole 5-day affair. It's like a week-long thing, to do an event, and it was a big, massive eye-opener. We actually, I raced 2 classes because they had stock and modified there, and we actually took my stock bike in a suitcase with us. We literally
what?
Broke it down. Old school.
We've been there.
How do you do that?
Bags, like the rectangular shaped things, they're about yay deep. Yeah. So the frame, the chassis, and then you take, it wasn't one suitcase, but an 85 or an 80 at the time, they fit into 2 suitcases. And
what?
So there's a family of 4. And you'll get 2 bags each, but at least 2 or 3 of the bags were a complete motorcycle, and then build that back up.
That was a regular thing back then. Yeah, as long as you've got to drain the oil out of all the engine and forks, they're okay with it. Yeah.
There was no issue. There was no flight safety regulations like there is now. So.
No. Although I was watching a little bit of the Whiskey Throttle show when you was on that, and then Pingree was on about obviously taking horses or little ponies on planes. Moved on quite a bit. So when you went over there, was that then the first taste of is that where you knew you wanted to end up after you'd been there? So that opened the doors in your mind to go, and I'm gonna come back here one day.
And I like explaining this in these type of forums, like when you're a 12-year-old kid in the 90s, or 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old kid in the 90s, there's no Instagram, there's no YouTube, there's no websites even until the late 90s, but then it's like, you're just getting a website to load up is like watching paint dries faster, so we literally, we didn't have pay TV, so my nana, she would record the races on VCR, and then we would get them if she had done it correctly.
Yeah.
And and then we'd watch them, and then obviously magazines, so magazines. So where I was going with that is I didn't really know or wasn't that interested at all in Europe. The only thing I knew that Shane and Daryl and Josh raced over there, and that was about as much as I knew. And it seemed like in my mind, I don't know why, but it seemed like a shithole, because every time I seen a photo, they were just covered head to toe in mud, and that was what I thought. Like, I literally just thought, oh, you had to be a mud rider to race in Europe. So I was just like hell bent on America. I was, as far as I was concerned, that was my career path, was America. And just purely through the magazines and then watching the recorded VCR from my grandmother.
Well, that would have been like any sport, really. The media covering action sports would have been America, wouldn't it? Is that pretty much the same at that?
It would have been at the time.
No, I just think that it probably wasn't. There wasn't that coverage, at least television coverage, of Europe. So that's why America was so prominent.
Yeah.
I think not only that as well. At the time, America were prominent with Supercross, and that had all the color, the glitz. They always had the new kit before anybody else. They always had Europe was at that point just a little bit behind with regards of the fashion and the color and the vibrancy.
And they weren't covered in mud at every single event.
Yeah, that as well.
So that's going to be appealing in itself.
Yeah, it's crazy how, like, as a kid, how children. Like, that's what my perception of Europe was. I don't know why. I have no idea.
Makes sense. Shiny and nice and glitzy over there. Quagmire in Europe. Yeah.
I just knew that Daryl and Shane, they were amazing mud riders, and it seemed like they did really well every time it was muddy. So maybe that's when I saw, we saw footage on the news or something. Because that's how you would see when a Kiwi did well, there would be some mainstream news.
Yeah.
So why Europe then? So why did you not go straight to America? How did the whole European thing come about?
The American thing, like that was sort of the focus and whatnot. And then got to the point where my parents couldn't, fund me to go and be a professional. And we were looking at, so in New Zealand, you can go into a pro class, or then you could go pro at the age of 15. So I went pro and I finished second, and then the guy who won, which was my rival from all the way through since I was the age of 8, he got offered a ride in Europe with the Faye Suzuki thing. You remember the Suzukis? Yeah. He got offered that ride, and he actually declined it. And then I then subsequently got offered that opportunity, and I took it. Because it was either maybe get to race in Australia and the national championship there, so New Zealand and Australia, or take this opportunity that who knows what could maybe come of it. And I guess at the time you're pretty green, and an opportunity like this comes about, and we actually sought some advice from Josh, and Josh had a manager at the time, and so we took it. Basically, I guess it was one of those things that it was an opportunity to get me closer to my goal. It was
a stepping stone, right?
Yeah.
America was over here, but Europe was here, and maybe that could, ultimately, that was ultimately what happened. But you didn't know at the time.
And so, how old were you? How old were you at that age when you got that deal? And was it like, right, see your mum and dad, I'm off to Europe, sort of thing?
Yeah. So I was 15, and then
15.
I turned 6. So I got offer late November of 2000. 2000, and then I turned 16 in December of 2000, and then I left for Europe early 2001. Yeah. So Mum actually, she came over with me, got me set up in this little apartment in Germany. She had to. They couldn't afford to be, one of them away. They both needed to be home, and so that was the start of what was a crazy journey after that. Yeah.
How exciting was that at the time, thinking, right, I'm doing this on my own? But then also, how long after being on your own did you think, oh, no, what's what I want to do? No? Never once felt homesick or like you were doing the wrong thing?
At one point, our team got relocated, and we were relocated. It wasn't an ideal environment. It's sort of, I won't go into too much detail, but just the way that we were treated, like it felt like we were in a bit of a concentration camp at times. You know, it was, and that's not a word of a lie, just the way it sort of ended at the end of the day, and you know, you were sort of told to stay there until the next morning. It was just crazy sort of a setup, you know, but I got through it. And there was another Kiwi guy that I subsequently met then, and he actually ended up being my mechanic for my whole pro career.
I mean, so, you Kiwis are pretty headstrong and good travellers anyway, aren't you, really? Yeah, well, most that I know are.
I think the whole thing right behind it for me was that you got this opportunity, and you know, like, you've got to exhaust every possible part of this opportunity before you say, all right, I've got to pack my bags because this ain't working. That was how I was brought up. You know, that was the way that my mindset was. You know, like, it's going to have to be fairly bloody extreme for me to pack my bags and say, no, I'll have enough of this. Yeah.
How many years? How many years from that point onwards? So you moved over at 16. Where did you go with your racing through that period, and how long were you in Europe, and what was the step after?
Yeah, so we started with that Suzuki team in Germany. They were a startup team, literally, with me and then Justin Morris. He was one of the riders, and there was a Czech guy. So there was sort of a real flavour of international riders on one team. So no German riders, which was weird, but yeah, anyway. So then I started with them, and then it sort of all fell apart, and I ended up being the only rider on the team. And then I broke my upper arm, or my shoulder blade. I broke my shoulder blade at a German championship event, and I decided, Mum and Dad sort of were like, well, you might as well just come home while you heal up. So I did go home, and then while that happened, that team went tits up, and when I was recovered and healthy to go back to race, I wasn't there to go back to. But I'd just shown enough, like I'd done, I think, I want to say 6 GPs. And at times it was back in the old, that sort of crazy time when they had one moto. Yeah. And I wasn't fit, but I had enough stamina to like have a good crack. And I wouldn't call myself a great starter historically, but on that Suzuki, I don't know how I did it, but I just absolutely cracked some amazing starts. And I would run, you know, I'd start in, I'd hold my own for a while until the old stamina gave up, because I was severely overweight at that time. And then that sort of was enough really for when I returned and I was healthy, that I actually got an opportunity. And I went on to race the remainder of my time in Europe for KTM. It was a satellite team. When I went back to Europe at the end of 2001, they picked me up. That was myself and Tyler Rattray and Gareth Swanepoel. And then, I ended up being starting with KTM. That ended up being sort of the pattern that KTM did after that. You know, they took on young riders early, and you signed a long-term deal, and that's what I did with them. Yeah.
That was hold on, was that? No, that was the champ KTM team.
No, that was
before that.
Van Garney.
Yeah. Oh, Van Garney, yeah. But then that you guys then kind of went from there onto the champ thing, didn't it? Which was the kind of the 250. Yeah. That was still 125s at that point. No.
Yeah, that was on that crossover. So the spot sitting behind the computer, that's the first ever 250 championship bike. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the one you won it on. Yeah.
One that sounded like a.
Yeah, we'll have a look at that in a minute. Yeah, that was cool.
I'll finish this bottle and I'll start it up.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you want to stop for a wine break? Because obviously you're talking so much, you're not getting the opportunity.
someone who can deliver.
Yeah, just get it down. He's not shy, is he, with that?
Good
Is
lad.
Is that from a local vineyard?
No, this is actually Eli Tomac's mother.
Really?
Yeah.
That is some
What
nice.
a great
That is some
story.
nice motocross showbiz name dropping.
Let's have a look at that. That's just right. I need to check that out.
I need some flying tea. There you go,
So
Eli
does
Tomac. A little bit of shameless. This show brought to you by Flying Tea.
Does she do that up at Colorado then?
Yeah. Down in the canyon that they live in.
What's that? Are you getting paid in lieu for sort of bringing Eli on a little bit when you used to train him? Is that what that is all about?
No,
she send you over crates of wine every month? What's the deal?
They just said I was going to be on the show. They airdropped the bottle and said,
nice.
Good stuff. Yeah, because you obviously used to. We'll get on to what when you went to America. So. Yeah, so obviously the transition going from a 125 to a 250 around that time. Then, so you're doing this. Obviously, you obviously want you want to be world champion. But when did it actually start to become a reality? You think I'm on this.
Reality when I
apart from winning it, I meant leading up to winning it.
Ben Garney was a big South African wider family, you would sort of say, it was like a it was just a bunch of South Africans that got together and they formed a team to help youth transition through.
That's right. Didn't Tina Yeah.
Now, yeah. So Tina was really instrumental in setting that up to try and bring youth through. I don't know if it had anything to do with Albie, I'm not sure, but it's something to do with Grant, with Langston, and then obviously to do with Tyler and Gareth, and there were other sort of riders, I don't recall their names, sort of that were there or thereabouts at times. Anyway, I got that opportunity to finish the 2001 season with them. Again, I showed more promise than I had on the Suzuki. I mean, the K-Team was a superior bike at the time, wasn't it?
Oh, God, yeah.
And then I did the next year with Champ on a factory bike. With Van Garney. That was 2002. That was my real breakout, really, 2002. I showed up to that first GP and got second, and some people probably didn't even know my name. And I surely wasn't Dutch, so they were like, what the hell's going on?
We're reading the program, saying, "Who's this?"
That's not a very, very European name. Yeah.
They were looking down the program, oh, here we go.
Something Van this, Van that.
Townley. There must be a typo.
Van Townley. Yeah.
You probably Ben Van Townley. And
that was back in the day. Like you'd go to a race in Europe, and some Dutch dude in a pink helmet that. You'd never heard of. He'd just like rock up and he'd he'd do what I did. He'd get on the podium, and then you'd go the next weekend, you'd go to Italy and that dude wouldn't even qualify. And then I vividly remember this guy being sponsored by the police. He got on the podium at a race in Italy, but he couldn't qualify at a centre. It was crazy, man.
So that sounds pretty interesting. Is that just because of the massive variety of different riding terrains, or just the massive riders in Europe?
Yeah, there was, and they were so specialised at the time, Whereas, and that was kind of at the time I arrived. There was a major change, huge change at the time.
Was that hard for you to wrestle with as you travelled around Europe?
Not at all, because that's not at all. Not one bit, because in New Zealand you ride all year round. You ride in mud and dust and sand and.
Oh, so you had an advantage in that sense, over.
Well, I wouldn't say an advantage, but it's certainly a strength of Kiwis that we have a real all-round riding skill set, because we grow up with all terrain. We race on grass and we race on fully deep rip tracks and everything in between. So. Probably the only thing we lack a little bit, but we do have it, is sand, but certainly not sand like in Europe.
Oh, no.
There's no sand.
What's European sand like that Kiwi sand isn't?
You can't explain it, mate. It's not.
It's true though. It's true. It's true, Matt. It's true. Like you go to like places like Lommel, you know, and it's just there's no, it's just bottomless. It's so gnarly. And so when they've had like
someone telling me at the time was something I've always remembered. They said, "You might not like it, but you better learn to love it." And it's really, really true statement, because you learn so many really good skills and real big assets to your riding, that those skill sets, and they're real broad skills that you take everywhere with you, you know. So it was, and I lived in Belgium after I moved out of Germany. I lived in Belgium, so we rode sand all the time. We rode sand a lot because we couldn't really afford to drive too much further to go riding. It was $10 or €10 to go riding at a sand track, so we just rode there all the time.
Yeah.
So the US riders, or the riders from the Americas, did they struggle in Europe for that reason, that all their tracks are quite pristine? And
that's a whole nother podcast, mate.
That totally is. No, he's right. In the contrast,
like just my brief opinion of it. They don't really struggle with the riding. They struggle with the culture. The riding is not too dissimilar, because, you know, it's got a clutch, it's got a throttle, foot pegs.
That's true. They do.
It's got round wheels. They didn't reinvent the wheels in Europe, you know, since they got them. They struggle with the culture.
Yeah.
The culture is the one thing that is so vastly different. And I can say that because I went the other way, and it was just a breeze, total breeze.
While you're on about culture, we'll move on with your career in a minute. But while you're on about culture, and you said growing up you thought Europe was a bit of a, did you say shithole? But I'm putting words in your mouth. No, but you just said about culture. So now, having lived in Europe for a while, you know, so did your opinion change after living here for a while? Did you get to like Europe in the end?
It's changed now. It has changed now. At the time, no, because I was still fixated on being in America. I was just like,
that was just a pit stop on your way to something else at the time. Yeah.
I got it. So going back to one of the questions you asked, we got way off topic. You asked, when did I want to be world champion, right?
Yeah.
It was when I walked into the bedroom at Vangani, and Langston's shirt was on the wall, and I don't really know who Langston was. I really don't, you know, because I had no idea of Europe. I just no idea. Or he'd just left because he'd won his world championship. He went to America, right? And I walked in, and then I got to understand that he'd been there 3 years. He'd gone from, I don't know where it was, to 10th to winning the world championship. And that instantly, that day, I remember it real vividly, became my goal. I finished that championship out, which I ended up finishing 33rd. Finished 7th the next year, which was my goal, to be in the top 10, because that's what Langston had done, and I wanted to win the championship the year after. So that was really the targets I set myself of what I want to achieve. Yeah.
So the Vangani team and Grant Langston, and is that 2002? That was the moment when it went, right, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And to not only to set a goal like that, but to also nail it on schedule.
I didn't. So 2003, which would have been nailing the goal, I got the opportunity because I was on a KTM contract, like a sort of what do you call that, a bit of a global contract. I wanted to test the waters in America, and I got injured really, really, really bad a couple of days prior to Anaheim. And so then 2003 was a write-off. And then, I ended up...
Come back.
Yeah, I had a broken wrist, but I had such severe internal injuries, there wasn't much consideration taken in my broken wrist, and it ended up being set incorrectly, and I had to be re-operated on. So when I tried to race in Europe, I couldn't ride with it in the way it had healed. So I got re-broken and fixed. Ooh. And I finished in that 2003 season on a 125, and had I think I podiumed close to all of the events I did. I didn't do many, maybe 4. And then, and then KTM said, do you want to have a test on the 4-stroke? I did. I went down to some track near Munich on the Austrian border there and tested the bike here, sitting here, and I fell in love with it the moment I rode it.
So was that a reason that you after?
My mind was made up to ride a 4-stroke within a couple of laps. Yeah.
Did you have an option after winning the world title in a contract, or did you have anything on the table in America after winning the 250 title?
I don't know.
You can't remember?
No, I do,
No.
and that's getting to one of the first negative points. I have another drink.
Excellent. Yeah, he's getting it.
I'm winning the world championship, and then KTM hadn't been exactly strong in MX1 at that time with their it's phenomenal really if you look at the success they were having in the 125 category and what I'd then been able to continue to do on a 4-stroke, and which then subsequently became the MX2 category.
Yeah.
And then, but they weren't having any. It took years, to have that success really in the MX1. So halfway through that 2004 title campaign, I was winning that title, that championship, and they wanted to re-sign me, and I was sort of on the fence. But I kind of got really guilted into re-signing with them for 2005 to move on to a 450. It's probably one of the big things I look back on and wish that I'd had better guidance, is that I shouldn't have rushed to get onto a 450 really. I should have done a year, another year in MX2.
That was one of our questions, to say why did you jump, you won it and you've gone straight up. It's like you was always in a hurry to get that now, next knowing that you're going to.
Always in a hurry. I'm always in a hurry. Still, I haven't changed, but really that's probably one of the undoings of my racing, my career. I was competitive, obviously, the following year. I won a lot of GPs against Everts and Coppins and whatnot, but I probably didn't need to. It wasn't, I was 19. I was still young. So I've gone it's just I was actually talking to my wife about it the other day. I have never really looked back on my career until these last few weeks. It's just become so quiet and monotonous, and then you start things pop up and you start looking, and then it just goes further because you've got time, And
you're wandering around the grounds of your house with some flying tea and your dressing gown and your pants.
And you get us two. Get us 2 donuts messaging you saying, "Come on, you got nothing to do. Let's have a chat." And now it's all coming out. It's like therapy.
It's good. Go on, bend.
And I really looking back, I probably should have stayed another year MX2. I had a fantastic bike, great team, especially the engine tuner, Harry Nolter. He became a major, sort of guide for me with the bike and whatnot. And I had a lot of trust in him. I became, I'll tell you, to extend that trust became, in a minute. But that was probably a decision. KTM wanted me to stay. I could have gone Suzuki. I had a few options to go MX1, but I went with KTM. And I was still competitive on that bike. But imagine what I could have done if I'd been on a Japanese bike, at that time.
I know what you're saying.
Because I tell you why. So if we just quickly fast forward, when I got to America and rode that pro circuit bike for the first time, I was like, "Holy shit! This is like, the KTM at that time, especially with the without the linkage, with the was it PDS?
PDS.
The PDS, it was just so different to ride, and instantly I just felt so much more at home.
Was that always the case? Has that always been the case with KTM? Have always been excelled with the bikes, the smaller engine bikes and the smaller bikes, and the Japanese was the way to go.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
At that time, they were phenomenal at that time with the 125. Phenomenal.
Yeah. I got a chance to ride a couple of factory bikes. I rode Dobby's factory winning bike, and it's just like, come on, this is cheating.
Well, you've taken the words out of my mouth. It was like cheating. Yeah.
But what can you pinpoint? In what way did they ride so much better?
Engine. Just straight up engine. Just straight up, flat out horsepower.
It was unreal. I can remember riding Dobby's bike, going around the corner in like third gear, and thinking on any other bike I'd be down to first gear to get the red.
And I had a really I had really good engine tuners. So Harry Nolter, he was one of them. And then at Vangani, I had Wayne Lumgear, who is he's engine tuner now for Webb and Muskin. So like it tells you the stature of blokes that I had. And that Vangani bike for a production bike it was actually back when, you remember the SXS, so that midway bike. So we got the SXS engine, and then Wayne worked on that, and it suited me because I was never a rider ever that liked to rev my bikes a lot. And the way that those KTM 125s were rideable for a 2-stroke 125 and a torquey part of the power, it was incredible. Yeah, incredible what they were able to achieve with those bikes at that time. Yeah, really.
That coupled with determination and skill set, and you're on a winner, aren't you?
Yeah. It was hard to go wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Let's recap. We've got to.
Where are we at?
You're jumping up. Where do we get to? 2005. You've jumped up to. You stayed with KTM. You jumped onto a 450. So you're staying in Europe now for this period. Where is the States on the whiteboard goal setting plan? Yeah, right there.
Yeah, it's there.
Pinning a donkey on the tail of a donkey. Like, I'm going to go there soon.
Yeah, there were a lot of offers then, and so they came down to. So 2005 was a great year. It was a bit of a hangover from 2004. So I was trying to. I stayed in Europe probably a lot longer than I should have. At the end of 2004, I had to do some testing with KTM. This is an interesting story. So the bike that I tested in 2004, the 450, I did that testing and I ended up getting injured in Italy. It wasn't too bad of an injury, but then I went back home to New Zealand, and obviously I was going home as a world champion, so there's a lot of festivities and
a lot of red wine.
I sort of getting to that point, where I was, I guess, trying to pave my own path. I wasn't under mum and dad's sort of umbrella, so to speak, the whole time. So I didn't crack on with my training at all. That's one thing I can look back and just see the years that you have, that's why the greats become great, because they're so consistent with everything they do day in, day out, and that year leading into 2005, I just wasn't really in the mindset of being, that at that standard that I needed to be. And it showed, because the start of 2005 it took me so long to get going, but coupled with the fact that I didn't have the engine that I tested with in the end of 2004. So KTM bosses and engineers made a decision that they weren't going to allow that engine to go into production. They didn't want to go any further with it, and I wasn't made aware of it until I arrived back.
You got on a bike. What was the reason for that when it was so good?
They weren't happy with that direction, and probably more than anything, I would say it would have to do with what do you call it? Longevity. What's
reliability, durability.
Reliability. Going in, because that the sort of direction usually is to go in the end game to production is usually the idea of it, but they weren't happy with it, and they made that call. And I came back, and I wasn't at the extremely high level of fitness at that time, heading into what was an even harder category than I'd raced the year before, coupled with the fact that I wasn't really gelling with the bike, but I didn't know it. And this is something really interesting. So Harry pulled me aside after a few GPs, 3 or 4 GPs, and he said that it's not working for you. You're just, I can hear the way that you're riding that bike. It's not working. You should try riding a stock bike, a stock engine on a factory team. Imagine telling the heavy engineer that I don't want to ride on your engine anymore. Can you just take one out of that pallet over there, out of that crate, and put a stock engine in it, And we ended up doing that. So I convinced them to do it, and I won 4 motos in a row, 2 GPs, and then I podiumed 4 rounds of the World Championship in a row. So
That's great.
Yeah, you were on it.
Was that common knowledge at the time that you
not really.
kept that on the down low?
They don't want anyone to know that.
Yeah.
But you, it obviously worked, and then 2005 was good. I remember you
had a lot less power.
Yeah, so usable. You could use it.
Yeah.
I remember the main thing I remember about your 2005 season was obviously, I think you finished 3rd, didn't you, in the MX1 that year? Yeah. But the thing I remember most was probably the Motocross of Nations at Erney. Was it?
Yeah,
was it at Erney?
Isle of Wight.
Oh, Isle of Wight was amazing. Obviously, it was amazing for me because I had such an integral part with it. I actually cried.
Can you explain?
Well, I was part of the team that put the GP on the Isle of Wight and helped design the track and everything.
That's right.
And then
how's this? Right, this will be a little feather in your cap. For me, that's still it's top 3 in my tracks ever in the world that I raced on.
You're going to make him cry, Ben. He's going to cry on the show.
Stop it. I'll get emotional.
Now, you know what it was?
And I will, because you've ridden some amazing tracks.
It was like bringing America to Europe. Hey, it was.
And the weather was good and the soil was great. Yeah,
both years.
Get emotional.
For the UK, both years.
Yeah.
And well, I guess what makes it even more special for me is that I out of 4 motos that I raced there, I won 3, and I obviously won both GPs. So it was pretty special for me. And at the time, I was racing against Saudi in 2004, and so there was it wasn't a bitter rivalry, but like there was obviously a racing rivalry. And he sort of through some of my mistakes and the reliability of the KTM, he still had an inside shot at the championship, but. I loved Isle of Wight. That's, I think, just the pure atmosphere of going to an island as well.
Yeah, it was cool.
Everyone just gets into a little bit of a different mindset and chills out of it. And remember that beer tent right beside the whoops? Well,
hold on. The beer tent is another story. That's a podcast itself. But I'm going to bring Matt up to speed.
Have we got just to interject? Have we got photos of the Isle of Wight weekend? We can throw in there.
I will dig out. I'll find photos.
But just to tell
the
beer tent in particular would be
Matt,
best.
I'm just going to bring you up to speed. It wasn't really a beer tent. So in the planning meeting for the GP, we was all sat around this table, and the guy that was running it said, "What can we do to be a bit different?" And for a joke, I said it as a joke. I said, "Would it be great if we had a lap dancing tent there?" And he literally went, "That's brilliant. We're doing that." And I went, "No, really?
We'll do that."
And that's what we did.
So now we definitely need photos of this beer tent as well.
It's a great story. It's a great story.
To put it in perspective, if you turn around from your microphone and look at your wakeboard, are they wakeboards?
Yeah.
Wakeboards.
Yeah.
Imagine that distance and that distance again, and that's where the lap dancing tent was from the track.
Oh,
yeah.
My God. You could not get away with that in this day and age, could you?
Got another pit stop.
Like that.
Here is a great story about a very quick story about the lap dancing tent. So we booked it, we got the girls all sorted, whatever. My mate supplied the freestyle ramps for the freestyle that we also laid on Saturday night. We paid him in cash, right? He turned up on Thursday to set up the ramps. We had like a trial run on Thursday for staff and people to make sure it's going to work. We paid him, I think it was $1,000 in cash. He'd blown
that. Just went like that.
He'd blown that. By Friday morning. He'd spent it all in the lap dancing tent.
It's a win-win, isn't it? That
brilliant.
Could work for so many events. Pay all your suppliers in cash.
There you go. Genius.
I didn't know if you'd go into detail about that or not, so I thought I'd just...
No, it was brilliant.
No, we've just found the teaser for this podcast. That's going out immediately tomorrow, yeah.
we'll go back just quickly on Isle of Wight. Because I watched that the other night, 2005. I don't know if I'd ever watched that GP, and 2005 was another fantastic year. Both years were.
Yeah,
both.
It was good.
Fantastic.
But at the end, so you got to the so the Motocross the Nations. You know, we all knew that Carmichael and the American team would be strong. They're coming back into it after I think they missed the year before. So maybe they didn't. I can't remember. But either way, Ricky, you know, Wyndham, Tedesco, I think. And then there you were. What are you then? 20, 21? And you know, to be fair.
19.
Okay, well, Carmichael was the man, you know, and you ran it. I mean, you gave him a
funny story about that was I was actually meant to, because I was going to America, and just the way that the New Zealand team was structured, I was actually meant to race MX2 at that event.
So hold on, before you go further, it was already agreed that you was already off to America at that point. You'd already signed to go to America.
Back in the middle of 2005, I ended up choosing between whether I'd race for American Honda or for Pro Circuit, and that's quite a good story on its own, to be honest. Yeah. And then so I'm going into Erne. Daryl Hurley, you'd know the name. Daryl Hurley.
I remember Daryl.
So he was going to race MX3, Josh MX1, and I was going to go down because obviously KTM had a great 250. I was going to race a 250 anyway, so I put my hand up and said, I'll take one for the team, I'll go down. But then Daryl Hurley got injured the week before, and so they drafted Cody Cooper in, but he was MX2 champion, I think, in Australia that year. So they put him onto MX2. I stayed on a 450. So that was only decided. The numbers on my bike at that event, the hand cut, like the hand cut out of
That's brilliant.
A mechanic because we didn't have graphics.
Just doing it with duct tape.
Yeah,
nice. The biggest.
I'll tell you what, so any mechanic I've ever experienced, he is the worst at graphics. Like, he was a fantastic, but graphics not his strong point.
A different graphics guy. So let's set the scene. Motocross of Nations is obviously a big party affair because you've got.
Well, it wasn't until that year. Let's sort of set the.
Yeah,
set the scene. So, you know, you'd gone through that 9/11 shit, and America didn't go for a couple of years, and then Glen Helen didn't even happen, and you know the Motocross of Nations are just. The history was still there, but it didn't have that same atmosphere. And I don't know what, I guess the Americans coming to Erne.
Well, the Americans made it, and the French were doing well, and the venue. I mean, it's like a football stadium where they're all on that side of that hill.
I don't know if the Americans hadn't come, if you would have had the same people or the same number of people arrive to.
It's true. The event is not, and that is just fact. The event is not the same if they don't come.
No, I call it how it is. As far as I'm concerned, if Ricky hadn't been coming to Erne, it wouldn't have been the same turnout of spectators. Totally. Literally, he was at the highest point of his career. He'd just gone 24-0 for a summer. You know? So he was at the sort of
24-0, and then there's you, 19-year-old kid from
I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, little bit of a chip on my shoulder type of thing, and I always did at the Motocross Nations because I'm not from Europe and I'm not from America, and then you've got you got these the press, like this war that they have, Jeff Meyer and David Coombs having this stupid war about who's better all the time, and I don't really give a shit about that. I just want to.
Oh, I'm loving it. We need to get more wine down his gullet.
Yeah, get that flying tea in you.
Well, I honestly just wanted to prove how good Kiwis were. It's all I went up to do. I'm very proud, New Zealander. And I had raced the Motocross of Nations twice before that. Yeah, twice. And one was an epic failure. Or the year before, because my bike, remember that scene of my bike blowing up and there's smoke all around it? Yeah, so we were leading the Motocross of Nations.
You were. I know.
New Zealand was leading. than Motocross of Nations, So that was a huge failure, massive. So 2005 was a little bit of redemption for me personally, and it's a shame we got 1 point off the podium, eh?
Yeah.
One.
Last few laps, it all changed, if I remember rightly.
Can you?
Yeah.
I suspect that you're the sort of person, from what I gather in this conversation, that doesn't get overwhelmed by the occasion. But even in that situation, by that occasion,
I tell you, not getting overwhelmed. I was sitting on the start line, right, at the Motocross of Nations before that final race, and I hadn't raced Ricky because I was MX or Open MX3, whatever they called it. So I'd race Saturday MX3, and then on Sunday MX2, MX3, and then the final moto was MX2, MX1, MX3. And I put my goggles on as the 15 as what's Kurt's dad's name? Or Dave?
Dave Nicol, yeah.
Dave's holding up the board, or was getting the chicks to hold the boards up. And my goggle strap slipped out of the frame. So I had my goggles. My goggles were in two pieces at this point, and the 15-second board's holding cards up. And I'm like, oh no. So I'm like, here I am, dicking around, and I managed to wedge it through the hole, loop it up and tie it and put it back on my helmet, look down, and I just managed to rip out of the gate. It was pretty
bloody hell.
Did you have during the race, and I guess it's a question for any race, a big race, but at that particular time, were you aware of the situation during the race, as in you were giving Ricky Carmichael a run at the Motocross of Nations? Was that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I wanted to. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. It was my last race for KTM. I'd had a long history for them. We'd had a lot of success together, considering my age at the time, and, like looking back, I could have stayed in Europe, and had a good career with them, and so I wanted to really go out on a high note and be proud, for them to be proud of what we'd achieved together as well. So yeah, there was a lot of emotion riding on that one moto, to be honest. Yeah, I'd done well the whole weekend. I think I won the qualifying race, and then I won the MX2, MX3 race. I don't remember, but then obviously
I'm sure you did.
Yeah, and then the final moto, I gave it all I had. Ricky was at his absolute peak of his career, and I left it all out there. I didn't have anything else to give, really. So
good way to go off to America, though. So what happened then? When did you go back home for a bit, or did you just have a bit of break straight off to America?
Yeah, back to Belgium. We had a massive huge flare up, and then
insert photos or not?
Yeah.
What's that?
Matt said insert photos.
Insert photos. We're getting into Fight Club flash, like hangover style flash a photo, then back out.
Oh, it was bad. This is how bad it was. Cody Cooper
Brilliant.
got injured and couldn't race the New Zealand Championship when he got home. That's how bad it was.
The party.
Yeah.
Good party.
They're the ones you want. They're the proper photos. So listen. So you went off to America. So you, by my reckoning or recall, you decided to base yourself.
Oh, need to top up.
He does need a top up. So he's off to do that. We're going to talk to him about
sorry,
America.
Just closing a door. That's loud.
Right. So you went off to America. Now listen, you, by my recall or memory, you based yourself in Florida and not in California. What was the reasonings for that? Was that right? Did you even do that?
That's another mistake.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess Mitch's team's in.
Yeah, well, that's not probably the biggest. Well, that's a part of the factor, a percentage of it, but also, coming from Europe, you run American, there's not many people that can really talk about this. You know, you run a very different program in terms of the amount of riding hours to training hours. And then I went there specifically to get on board with Eldon Baker. That's why I went to Florida. And when, at that time, Ricky obviously was like at the peak of his career, and he was doing so many hours off the bike and so many hours on the bike. His mum was setting his riding program. Eldon was setting his off the bike. No, neither of them were going to give at all. You do this many hours here, and you do this many hours there. But he was seasoned to that, you know. And I went in. I couldn't sustain the amount of hours, and just I ended up getting.
Was it that intense?
Well, compared to Europe, yes.
Yeah. So you literally just going up more than
Europe,
1 or 2 levels.
Back then, from what I recall, we rode a couple of days a week, but we did a lot of cycling and a lot of running, and we rode and we trained. Well, we did a lot of tour days, you know. So you'd gym in the morning and cycle or run in the afternoon, or you'd run in the morning and motocross in the afternoon. Well, with Eldon, I went to 3 days at times. You know, where you'd cycle in the morning, moto at a supercross track, and gym in the afternoon. You know, so the load, the complete load on me was really, really taxing. And then also take into account, I was riding with Ricky. He only had one supercross track, so you rode the same track day in, day out. So I wasn't really learning, you know, different obstacles. I got okay at the obstacles on that track, but then it was only him and I riding. So he was whipping me. Like, he would lap me in a moto, in a 20 lap, or was laps back then, not minutes, but a lap. He'd lap me in a moto, you know. So I was really out of my depth with the whole thing. I love living in Florida.
Did that dent your confidence because you finished?
No, it didn't, because I was bulletproof, you know. But now, looking back, it was the wrong thing, because if I'd been in California, I would have been around Mitch and Bones. I would have been around riders within my level, so to speak, and I also would have ridden a lot more tracks. And there's no way, even if I was doing a remote training program with Eldon, I would have done all the laps and the no way. So all of that coupled together, I would have been way better off in California. Yeah, no doubt about it.
You got injured before you even got going, didn't you?
I had 2 injuries before I got going.
Yeah.
3. So 3 injuries before I got going. So I got to America, and I got straight into that program. So I was weighing, I don't know, you guys don't work in kilos, but I was weighing on a 450 in Europe about 78 kilos. Well, I got to when was the Motocross of Nations? Late September. I was weighing 78 kegs. My 21st birthday was in December, and I've got photos, and I was sort of around the 70 to 69 kilo mark. So I dropped 8 kilos in the space of a couple of months. So I just really shredded a lot of mass off my body, but that comes from eating a lot less and training a shitload. That's really what that comes from. And so that coupled from me, I made I made a mistake in late December and got injured, and then another mistake in late January and got injured again. And then there were 2, major injuries. And then the second injury in January was a knee injury. And then when I got back on the bike, I had a really unfortunate accident. My bike locked up going through some rollers. This was a motocross accident, and it locked up, and I did my shoulder. So yeah, the first 12 months were just a nightmare in America. Absolute nightmare. Yeah. Yeah,
but you obviously, it's at this point you just said you're bulletproof. I mean, maybe not your body so much, but then you've bounced back from that and come back the following year and won a bloody title at Supercross as well. It wasn't that year. It was the year after.
I spent a lot more time in California that second year. I don't know if that was by what was I saying? Like, if that was intended or if that was just happened by chance. But I spent a lot of time in California in the off season, which helped me immensely helped me, because I was able to ride with a lot of, I was Villapoto and then Chris Gosler and, there's Metcalf and guys like that. So I sort of was in riders, and I rode different tracks and learned different skill sets and obstacles, and just around a lot more people, really, is what it came down to. Because when you're at the track with Ricky, it's ingrained. He's been doing it for years, and he's on the last year of his career at that point, so he ain't doing anything different. He's just out there, just work, get back in the car and go to the gym, So being in California was definitely something that helped me a lot leading into that 2007 season.
Yeah. And what about winning that of your first Supercross? Was you surprised that Supercross title came before a motocross title?
No, not really. No.
It's just whatever. Just out there to win, and that's what you did.
I guess in my mind, going back to how we started this conversation a few minutes into it, that's what I've been fixated on that since I've been like 12, That's
but
what
you'd never really, but still, you'd never really done Supercross, up until that point.
In New Zealand, we have a domestic, we had a small domestic championship, like 2 or 3 rounds at times throughout as I was a kid, 2 or 3 rounds here or there. So I had an idea of what it was, But I was on a great team. My skill set was there, and I had the desire to learn it, and I was a student of it, So I was keen to put in the effort to achieve what I wanted to achieve, and ultimately riding for a pro circuit, you're expected to. So there's no learning the ropes type of thing at the age of 21 when you've already won a world championship and you've achieved good results in MX1. You're expected to do well, and I didn't think anything different.
So you was the right person for Mitch, because he demands that, right?
That's a really interesting one with Mitch, because I never saw the side of him that so often gets talked about. I never once experienced that, because I always did my work.
Well, maybe that's why, because he knew that you were
how hard they worked. They all work hard to win, and that really gives you also a lot of enthusiasm and drive to put your own work in to achieve, because you want them to have that success as well, So
he's the ideal rider to have, isn't he? So he's the man you want on your team. Go on, Matt.
You've got that first Supercross title, but then more injuries ensued after that to stumble you.
Just put on my glass.
you need a top up. Yeah.
I'll just get the bottle.
Perfect.
This would be brilliant. Yeah, go on, just pour in. Oh, dear.
Yeah, no, it all come unravelled after that. I should have stayed with Mitch, really. And for 2008, I only just obviously got onto. 2007 was a stellar year. It was solid. I had no injuries. Until Budds Creek, I had no injuries. And then,
the battle between you and Ryan Villapoto was, that was a proper tear up, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah, it's not quite. I had this conversation actually earlier this morning. Do you know Dylan Walsh? He raced in.
Yeah, he raced in the UK last year.
Yeah, MX2 champ. He's living with me, and he was saying how people get so excited about that year. And it was a great year for the championship, but I don't remember it being as close as what people sort of suggest it was. Like, I either won or he won, but we didn't have these gnarly battles. It was sort of wasn't like what people sort of make it out to be.
It swung back and forth quite a bit. I remember you had a good battle.
We were tied for 3 rounds.
Yeah. At Redbud, I remember you having a good back and forth.
But it's like the points was an amazing battle.
Yeah.
But we really, we only really had a couple of races where we actually went head to head. It wasn't like every moto where it was dog eat dog type of thing, you know. So yeah. But it was 2007 was a fantastic year, and Mitch wanted to keep me, but I was in a hurry. I wanted to race 450. You know, I was like, I'd come from Europe. I'd been successful on a 450. Why couldn't I just get on a 450 and do it here? You know, it's the wheels around. They're not any different. I'll just jump on a 450 and do well over here. But obviously,
definitely more brutal a 450 when it comes to Supercross, though. I should imagine trying to tame that.
Yeah.
That's what they all say. Yeah.
So you made the jump. Is that one of those again? You actually, in hindsight, wish you'd spent longer on the 250.
Well, how's this? Like whether there's any sort of whether this could have even ever worked. Mitch wanted to retain me just for Supercross and let me go to Honda, and after Supercross, like he was willing to enter.
Really?
Yeah.
That's quite an unusual situation.
Well, that's really, I think, I mean, that's really bizarre.
He really wanted me to stay, and I wish I had stayed now for another year on with him for sure, because it was a fantastic bike. It was, I don't know if it's just, you know, by chance or good luck or what it is, but I rode fantastic bikes. I rode the KTM 125, KTM 250, this bike here. Yeah. And then I raced Hondas. Like, I don't know if that's good management or good luck. I'm not sure, but this bike behind me, that was like
that's a weapon right there.
Yeah, it even sounded like a weapon, eh?
Yeah. Oh God, completely different tone up there. It's like those.
All right,
Ducatis.
Calm down, Jeff.
Sorry, I'm getting all excited. Yeah.
So I ended up moving to Honda, and it just came unraveled at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when it came. And what was that? So that you went for the Red Bull factory Honda team, and then is that when you picked up the foot? You done your foot in, didn't you? Did you break your foot?
Two injuries. So I actually got injured at Redbud, the Motocross of Nations. I came over that hill, Henry's Hill, and I scrubbed it.
I was there. I don't remember that. Mind you, to be honest, I had been drinking all weekend.
Yeah, it was a blur.
There's a theme to your recollections of lots of these events, Jeff.
No, Matt, if you was at the 2007 Motocross the Nations as a fan, you would have been doing the same.
Okay, fair enough.
I did the same thing. It was manic, eh?
Oh, the after party, the Red Bull after party.
What about Saturday
night? Saturday when the police got caught, literally, right? So there was this big punch-up riot type thing, and I actually know the person that started that, but I'm not going to name names. Really? And they literally, like the Blues Brothers, Matt, the police got called out, and I'm not kidding, there must be about 20 cop cars turned up, nose to tail, with their lights flashing, just coming into the venue. It was mayhem.
It was, mate. I've got some good stories from that night.
We do need a sign-in only subscription to this podcast, because there's been a lot of that. Oh yeah, there's that story, but we can't talk about that here. Moving on, you hurt your foot at the Nations, and that.
No, I hurt my shoulder.
Your shoulder at the Nations, not your foot.
But I didn't realise at the time sort of the extent of the injury. So I finished with Mitch, and I started testing with Honda. I had my very first day to test with Honda. Japanese were there. It was a big deal, you know. So, you know, looking back, I didn't really, you know the extent of it. You know, I'd just gone from this kid that could barely qualify in Europe, and I'd just gone, you know, and then I was like racing for American Honda, and the Japanese were there, and it was at the test track in Corona, and can't remember if it had rained or if it was overwatered. I don't know. And I got sick of waiting around. Here's some more impatient.
There's a theme start. There's a definite theme.
Yeah, and I got sick of waiting around, and I decided it would be all right to ride. And you just shouldn't ride a Supercross track when it's wet. And I got some wheel spin. I came up short on a jump, and my heel, I didn't crash, but I cased the jump, and the way I ride with my toes, my heel hit the ground, and it just shattered my heel. Well, I didn't actually even know I said, oh, that's not good. I can't ride anymore. And I went in to see, you know, that guy, Dr. G, that everyone, you see him on all those videos, Dr. G?
No, I don't know.
You know, he's like the guy that helps out a lot, physiotherapist that helps out a lot of riders.
Over there, yeah.
Yeah, and I went to see
I've
him.
heard of him. I know you mean now, yeah.
Put some like electric stem on it, and I almost jumped off the table. And he said, "Oh, I'd say that's broken." And it turned out it was just a disaster zone in there. So I had to have that all reconstructed, and I hadn't really had the chance to ride because that I'd left Budds Creek. I got injured with the shoulder, and then I didn't ride. I went to Honda. That was going to be my first ride. All that time, I didn't know I had a shoulder injury. So when I got back after the heel, my shoulder wasn't cut out for holding on to a 450. It just wasn't. So then I had my shoulder operated on, and it was just a roller coaster. Yeah, it was a mess, and that didn't turn out to be a very successful surgery. And then I had to have another one. I actually came back to Europe to have the surgery done the second time, and I was just over it by then, to be honest.
Yeah. Looking back, do you think that was not the very loose beginnings of the end, possibly, regards of motivation, maybe?
Nah, not at all. The one of the major factors was if we sort of fast forward a bit. So I got healthy again. I spent a lot of time at home. That was probably one of the loose beginnings of the end, is being at home. That certainly was a bad decision to come home, because when they talk about the grass being greener, it's certainly a little greener on this side over here.
On a literal sense.
I probably agree with you on that. Yeah.
On a literal sense, and then also for the fact that I left home when I was 16, and I'd been gone for 9 years at that time. 9 years is a lot to, I shouldn't say miss out on, but there's a lot happens in 9 years, when you're that age. You're again, I'm saying miss out on, but you miss out on finishing going to high school, which is a hell of a time, and then you miss out on if you do go to university. But it doesn't really matter if you go to university or not. Those years of sort of 18 through 24, and I sort of came home and was I got to enjoy life way too much, really, at that time. So that was probably it. After that point going forward, I was always sort of 1 foot in and 1 foot at home type of thing. Does that make sense? So I think to be a professional when you're from New Zealand or Australia, you've got to be all in, and you've got to cut ties, and you can't sort of have that be looking over the fence. You just got to be so committed to what you're doing to achieve what you want to achieve.
I mean, that's the same no matter where you are with any sport, but I can imagine much more so with you guys when you come from such an incredible part of the world. To leave it behind, it's got to be tough.
But you don't know when you're 16.
No.
You got no idea when you're 16. But then when I was 25, I was like, this is not too bad, eh? This is a good place for the world. Like, I remember at that time I got right into fishing. We bought a little boat, got into fishing, and then my wife's parents had just moved to the beach, and we'd spent a lot of time at the ocean. So I felt this is where I could see me and doing a bit of this a lot more.
So did that looking back maybe play part in your, along with the injuries? We're going to really fast forward now with the injuries. The retirement thing, because you retired, then you came back, then you retired again.
I tried to race. Well, I did. My aim was still to get healthy and go back to the US. Nothing had changed. I just was sick and tired. I'd gone for a year and a half of being injured, and I was just over it. Like I really was, and that's why I made the decision to come home and have some time off and whatnot. I got healthy, got back on a bike, got the opportunity then to race for Honda, but Pingree was running the team for
Yeah.
Trolley. And man, I was going really, really well. I mean, only I can attest to this because no one else would have seen it. I was doing a lot of my preparation during the US Supercross season, so January, February, March. I think it was sort of mid-March or early March, I got injured in New Zealand. I was going up a hill, I remember it very vividly, going up a hill and I missed the gear. Or I caught a false neutral and I hit the handlebars really hard. And I saw stars. Oof, that didn't feel too good. I think I might just pull off. And my dad was actually, he's a builder, my dad, and he would come out to the track and pitboard me, and just keep an eye on me. I said, I don't know if I think I might just call it a day, eh? And I was there with a mate, and my dad left, went back to work, and then I said, I think we should go to the hospital. And he drove me to the hospital, and then by the time I got to the first hospital, I was in a lot of pain. They gave me some painkillers, and I said, well, I'll go back to the town I was living in, and halfway between, it was an hour and a half drive. I was in excruciating pain. I had to get on the side of the road. I was in just in a frenzy. Took me straight to hospital, and it turns out I ruptured my bowel, and I was just my bowel was leaking all through my stomach, and so that was a real pivotal injury, I reckon, because I was on a path to go back to 2010 motocross, and I wanted to really stamp my name back in there and re-establish myself in 2010 to continue my career, And after that, I couldn't get back on a roll in 2010. And then by the end of the season, I was sort of, I was podium at conference and whatnot. And then Motocross of Nations was really successful. I won a moto in Colorado. So that was good. And then I got an opportunity to come back to Europe. And I do remember at the time making the decision, right, at this point, it's either I continue with the American dream or I go back to Europe. And by that point, you asked me this earlier, what did I think of Europe? By that point, I had an appreciation for Europe and the World Championship and the culture of Europe. And I was keen to actually, in 2011, see out my career. And I wanted to win again. I wanted to win World Championships. I was looking at Caroli thinking, I left Europe and I used to smoke that guy, that's what was going through my mind, I can go back there and do what I used to do. And I got bloody injured again. I had a major injury. So in that pre-season, I was at home. I had a track on my own property, and I don't know what happened, but my dad was pitboarding me, and I had to sleep for about 5 or so minutes. It was a major crash, and and then it took me a long time to recover from that one because of the I don't know. It's hard to explain.
Well,
the head rattlers when you're just not quite right. Yeah.
And I tried to race, and I wasn't fit, and I just wasn't in the right space, man. It just was a major. I had a major head injury, and it took a long time to recover. And then I still wasn't done with racing.
You can't get enough of it, okay? You are a glutton for it.
I've had enough of this, for right now. I got to reset. And Australia had a really strong series at the time, super strong series. And so I decided, right, I'm gonna race in Australia for a year. I'm going to get some momentum going, and I'm still going to come back and be a world champion or American champion.
So this is 2011 that you were looking to race in Australia after the head injury?
Well, so I got injured in January of 2011 and was meant to race for Monster Kawasaki in Europe, 2011. I think I tried a couple of events. It just wasn't working, and again, I just came home. I literally came home and went into a bit of a hole. I didn't use a cell phone for a few months, and just I literally switched off. We lived on a property on on a rural property, you know, and I literally just sort of went into a bit of a slump, really. But I still had that underlying desire to still achieve my goals, but I just needed to, you know, like if you can imagine, like you just sort of stand back and look at it. I'd gone 16 to the age of 20. I literally couldn't put a foot wrong. Like I had one injury in that time. It was a major injury, but I had one injury during that period. But man, that was just like progression after progression after progression. Actually, till I was 21, because you know when I went to Honda, you know, like it was like no one had ever expected me. I didn't expect it to do that. Like it was just like wow. And then all of a sudden I had like the age of 22, 23, 24, 25. I was just like, oh, this is turmoil. You know what the hell's going on? You know, like I had this trajectory just going like this, and now all of a sudden I just fell off a cliff. You know. So then in 2011, we came home and just sort of I decided I needed to reset. You know, like it just wasn't working, and I got an opportunity. The guy that ran the Honda race team in Aussie, he reached out to me at the end of 2011, and I said, all right, yeah. And then I just fell in love with that Honda. Absolutely, it was the 2012 Honda. Obviously, it was end of 11, but the 2012. Fell in love with it. I got to work with a guy in New Zealand that, I don't know, it was just an aligning of paths at the time. He helped me build that bike around me, and I started racing in New Zealand because just the way the calendar works, the New Zealand series is in advance of the Australian series. So I started doing the New Zealand series and then went into the Aussie series, and it was just going way, way too good to be true. Like way too. I was riding the fastest I ever rode in my career, without a doubt. Faster than 2007, without a doubt. And just the way I was riding the bike. And then Reed got injured, and Honda America wanted someone to fill his bike, you know, and he asked me to race for him. So I signed a deal. Honda Australia released me from my deal. And that was when Ando raced for Honda and Aussie.
Yeah, Brad Anderson, yeah.
It was him and I were teammates. And so Honda Australia were like, well, we've, you know, like if you go there, we've got Ando, so he'll provide the results we need, so you can go to America. So I signed that deal, and then he got injured, like literally, like within days later, got injured.
This year it was frowned upon. So we just got onto chatting about arena cross and how it's a bit full on, and this year was a bit more full on than usual. Oh yeah. It's frowned upon, but the event's a show.
Oh, so what the word I was looking for is it's not encouraged.
This was the big argument this year, that the event does encourage it, because certain riders have been billed as those aggressive riders, and we talk about them being more aggressive, so therefore we're supposedly encouraging it. It could be seen as that, but behind the scenes, the people who run it are like, you don't do this, you don't do this, you don't do this.
The spectators love it, mate. I get pissed off when Barsha, like when someone doesn't like actually have a go. Like I when I'm watching and I'll might spend all that getting into that position. He gets there and then he turns out of it instead of just cleaning the guy out. Like, what's the point? Like, you've made all that effort, and then you've gone within social distancing measures, and you're like, oh, no, I better pull out of this.
There's no room for social distancing in MX.
No, definitely not. I don't remember you doing that. I don't remember you cleaning too many people.
No, because I didn't need to. I set the pass up.
Nice. That is another great comment.
Suave. He's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's the truth. Like, I was articulate in the passes I made. I worked out when and where I was going to make that pass, and I made it happen. You know, like, and I have taken a few guys out, properly taken them out. It wasn't my intention, but it just at the end of the day, when the push came to shove, I was there and I wasn't going to back out of it. What's the point of backing out of it?
I tell you,
So
yeah,
we know exactly quite confirmed which side of the fence.
I think
Ben
it's
stands on.
No, because I'm a spectator now. I'm a fan of the sport, and you need that rivalry and that what's it?
I think it's fair to say Ben Townley's determination and character has come out in this interview.
I reckon
I like it.
Need to come out of retirement for an umpteenth time and come and ride arena cross. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd ride arena cross. I'd definitely ride the Western. Definitely.
Oh, here we go.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
right.
an episode.
We can
That's an
make
episode
that happen.
right there.
Definitely ride Western for sure. Yeah,
Okay.
without a doubt. I'd love to ride Western. Isle of Wight, that'd be good.
Oh, stop it. You'll
start him off. You'll start him off again.
Heady days of my life, that was.
Salad days of strip clubs and motocross.
Yeah.
What could be a better mix?
I don't know why. Bizarrely, I can distinctly remember one of the strippers really well.
And you can't remember any of the racing.
No, I can remember being stood outside that beer tent. With a cold beer in my hand, watching them skim across the whoops in front.
I've kind of got a picture of you being like this.
Well, this is what I was like. So,
all right, carry on.
If you can imagine this is a beer, and I'm looking at you, therefore looking at the whoops of the track in front of me, thinking, admiring these, like Ben and the boys doing their stuff, skimming across the whoops. But I'm kind of torn. I'm doing this, kind of going.
Who are you admiring most?
Who are you admiring most? He did say Ben first.
I kept getting distracted. I wanted to watch, and I'm like, but I know those girls are stood behind me. It was torment. I moved away in the end. Had to. Couldn't concentrate on the job in hand.
We need to wrap up because, boys, we've been chatting for an
I know,
that's
the trouble. That is the trouble.
It's going to be a lengthy one. Let's just wrap up with Ben right now. First of all, looking at your website, I want to come and do a Ben Townley tour. When did you start that up? And do you love giving the tours, just being out on the bike with weekend warriors and Johnny Punters?
To me, the whole point of why we went down that route was just because it became so often that you heard about it throughout the world with people that said, I'd love to go to New Zealand and go riding. It looks like a fantastic place. Just, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then sort of the idea was born basically around offering some type of riding experience in New Zealand and eventually got to the point where I wasn't really racing much and it was time to actually look at being a little bit more, getting into the real world a little more. Not that...
No, put it off. I mean, when you say real world, it's a sliding scale of what the real world is. Yeah, we like it.
Yeah.
We're going to put hopefully we'll put a link up to the website.
Yeah, we will.
And when
all
we
of that.
do, trust me, people, click this link, and when you land on the homepage, just the video that runs at the top within 10 seconds. If you haven't ridden a dirt bike, you'll want to. It's just like,
it's pretty.
Look at that.
Phenomenal place to ride a dirt bike, especially in spring and autumn. Like right now, everyone's just going nuts that they can't ride because phenomenal. You have these two windows in New Zealand. You've got April, May into mid-June, and then you've got sort of early September into sort of mid-October. These two windows that are fantastic for riding. And New Zealand has really moved from, like, when I was growing up, it was more of a sort of like hardcore racing or more of a motocross basis of dirt bikes. Now that's probably a smaller percentage of the riders. You've got this massive amount of riders that trail ride on any given weekend, and you have so many commercial operators now.
That's the way it's gone the world over, hasn't it? Europe, it's mental the amount of adventure bike schools.
No, I'm talking trail riding.
Trails.
So these are organised and man-made trails. So like my website, what Graham Jarvis does, like going through these shitty tracks in first gear and hopping over rocks, it's like what you'd call trail riding in the UK, or trail riding in New Zealand, third and fourth gear.
Yeah,
you can race your mates and you're in pine forest, 30-foot trees, and you're, it's like a different world.
It's just a little bit easier going, as in the terrain's not so difficult, and like fire roads,
it's not really
things like that.
Cool, but you're out, in the wilderness type of thing, but you're having a fantastic experience, and that's really what I think the big thing about riding in New Zealand. It's very unique in that perspective. Trail riding, it's very, very unique. It's man-made. It's like a real low-key motocross track that goes for miles.
Yeah.
Holding on one of those skateboards for us.
You're gonna do a burnout on the show right
Only
now?
if you do a kickflip.
I can't do a kickflip. I'll do a ollie. Hold on. You promise you're gonna do a burnout?
Well, no, you got to land a kickflip.
I can't do a kickflip, so I'm never gonna land it.
You guys normally run. Oh shit! Hold on.
Let's wrap up the big portion of the show. The interview is done. I think we've covered.
Yes.
We haven't covered everything. I'm
No,
we haven't covered everything. Definitely not covered everything. There'll have to be a round 2 when you come over to Europe for the Western next year.
Yeah.
When you come over to Europe to the Western next year, then we'll do the next show.
What time of the year are they normally?
October.
October for the Western.
And I did speak to Gareth only yesterday. Gareth Hockey, who runs it. And basically, he's hoping that obviously if things get lifted, he's still planning that it will run this year. So,
this year. And Jeff, you and I, we could do it on a motocross sidecar setup, like we've been promising.
And quite frankly, you can piss off.
That's
that's not happening. No way.
Perfect answer, Jeff.
I'm not. I struggle to do it on a solo, and that'd be the kids' race that only runs for an hour. And actually, we can make let's make it a trilogy. We could catch up with you at Western, and then eventually, when we get over to New Zealand, we'll
do a little promo video of Ben Townley tours, and there we have it. And we could go on for ages. 2 hours, 2 minutes. There we go. So we've got maybe 10 minutes to chop off because the quickfire questions will be something separate. But Ben, it's been amazing chatting to you. Thank you so much for sharing your Friday night with us. I'm sure you had lots of other social engagements that you have forsaken to join us. So we appreciate that.
The list is a mile long at the moment.
Yeah, I literally just must be, so much to do.
Promise number 1 is that when the world is righted again next year.
Well, that's your promise.
Yeah. Okay.
Western, you at the Western. Jack can sort that.
My promise doesn't come without you fulfilling your promise.
I will get onto that. Ben.
And while you're over, I can find us a place for us to go do a bit of mono skiing while you're over here in the UK. So that's another little bonus, another incentive.
I don't know. Again, it's like going back to that. I don't know if I have this picture in my mind of the UK being the place I'd like to single ski. I don't know. Just.
We'll figure it out. Stop being so precious. All right, it's not that cold and miserable over here. Okay.
No, we can definitely do that. So this is the first part of what could be a Ben Townley trilogy.
Yeah, and then we're going to start. By the time we're going to start up the motocross political podcast and the general political podcast as well with Ben Townley. Ben Townley says.
By the time we get to the third podcast, Ben will probably be into politics. Running.
He will be running.
So you get me. Let's get the what Western.
I'm on it.
Western.
I'm on it. I'm on that. I'm gonna. Do you know what? I'm even gonna plant the seed when I hang up on this today. I will get onto that.
Ben Townley, thank you once again so much for your time. It's been an absolute privilege and a pleasure. You take care. Stay safe.
Finish off that bottle, dude, and I'll be in touch about Western.
Yes, indeed.
I'll be waiting with bated breath by my phone, bud.
Don't be like that. We'll sort it.
I'll be on it. Don't worry. I'm getting you over somehow. And just look at that. Just as we sign off as well, there it is. That it's been sat behind you all time. The #1 AMA Supercross plate.
Take care of yourself, my man. See you at Western.
Be in touch, BT. See you later. Thanks, man.
Hey, mate, that was amazing. Thank you for setting that one up. We hope you enjoyed it. Guys, please make sure you hit the thumbs up, subscribe, check out all of our other content on the shows. We're going to release the quickfire questions with Ben Townley on our social media as well.
Yes.
The whole charities page thing, it hasn't quite worked because everybody's after your money out there as well. They might be, because there's lots of worthwhile causes out there. So what we're going to do is change things up a little bit. We are going to get a collection of gear together. Is that right, Jeff?
Yes, let's do that.
When we hit £500, we're going to draw names out the pot. So there'll be lots of goodies in there. So just throw some money at it. It's whatever you do, it's worthwhile anyway.
We don't know what prizes are going to be. We're going to start getting them up together, and we'll announce all them on our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, or whatever. So you can see the prizes we're going to start getting up together, and the money will go to a worthy cause. Just
make sure you put your name in the comments. Make your name and your comment visible so we can see who you are. That's the only way we'll be able to draw you out of the pot. And drop some comments below. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, more questions about the sport who you'd like to talk to. And we will be back with you next week on episode of the Crowfro Show. 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ladies, Jeff.
Thanks,
enjoy the sun.
I'm out of here. See ya.
Why me do my two-step?